She thought eating eggs every day was keeping her strong, but her body kept getting weaker, and no one could explain why. What she discovered next changed everything. I still remember that morning. Ellen was sitting on the couch, hands gripping the sides, trying to push herself up. Her legs trembled. Her breath caught. After a moment, she sank back down, eyes cloudy with frustration. This wasn't the first time. For months, she had been eating her 2 boiled eggs every morning, believing she was following healthy eating habits. That's what everyone said, right? Eggs are packed with protein, simple, reliable. She thought she was doing everything right, until her strength kept slipping away. No one had told her the truth, that not all protein works the same, especially after 60. And sometimes what we think is helping is quietly letting our strength fade. That moment haunted her. It made her question everything. But it was also the beginning. A week later, during breakfast, her grandson Alex looked up from his cereal and asked, "Grandma, are eggs really the best protein?" She laughed. That's what they've always told me. But that question, that single, honest question, would be the spark that opened a door she never expected. Because sometimes the smallest shift starts the biggest change, and Ellen was about to find out why. Ellen couldn't shake off that question. It kept echoing in her mind. Even after Alex had run off to school, are eggs really the best protein? She had spent her whole adult life trusting that simple routine. 2 boiled eggs, a slice of toast, maybe half a banana. It was easy, familiar, safe. But now, that certainly had a crack in it. That afternoon, she sat at the kitchen table with her reading glasses and started searching, not on medical websites. Those felt too overwhelming, but simple places, articles written for people like her. What she found left her stunned. Eggs only had about 13 grams of protein per 100 grams. Not bad, but far from ideal. And worse, studies showed that older adults didn't absorb protein the same way younger bodies did. Her body, slower now, more sensitive, needed protein that was easy to digest with better amino acid profiles. That part no one had ever told her. She made a list. Greek yogurt, chickpeas, quinoa, things she'd heard of but never really paid attention to. Some had nearly twice the protein of eggs. Others had fiber, magnesium, or anti-inflammatory effects. Things that could support her muscles in ways she didn't even know she needed. And the deeper she read, the more something began to change, not just in her meals, but in her mindset. Ellen's list sat quietly on the counter for 2 days, next to her recipe cards and the pepper grinder she used every morning. But something about it kept catching her eye. Each item on that page seemed to hold a quiet promise. These weren't fancy superfoods or strange powders. They were just different for what she was used to. On the 3rd morning, she decided to start small. Greek yogurt. It was on sale at the store, and Alex had always liked it in his lunchbox. She picked the plain, non-fat kind, not the ones with syrupy fruit or artificial flavors. The label said 10 grams of protein per 100 grams. She looked again. That was nearly double what her eggs had given her. She scooped a few spoonfuls into a bowl, added a handful of blueberries and a drizzle of honey. It was simple, cold, tangy, refreshing, and for some reason it felt like a fresh start. As the week went on, she added a few new things to her meals. Chickpeas came next. She remembered eating them years ago in a salad at her neighbor's barbecue. She found a small can in the pantry, rinsed them under warm water, and tossed them with lemon juice, a pinch of salt, and chopped parsley. Simple, earthy, filling. She didn't expect much, but she noticed she didn't feel as sluggish after lunch. Ellen had always thought of food as either comforting or functional, but now it was becoming something else entirely. A tool, a quiet support system for her changing body. She read more. Articles written in plain language. Testimonials from other older women. Short videos explaining how plant-based proteins could be just as effective, sometimes more so, than animal ones. One article from a senior wellness newsletter explained how protein needs actually increase after 60, not decrease. The body becomes less efficient at absorbing and using protein, especially after meals low in leucine, an amino acid critical for muscle maintenance. She scribbled that word down. Leucine. It showed up again in the next item on her list. Quinoa. A grain, but not really. Gluten-free, full of fiber, and a rare complete protein source among plants. She remembered buying a box once years ago and never using it. This time, she rinsed it, simmered in low-sodium vegetable broth, and added roasted zucchini and a few cherry tomatoes. The texture was soft but hearty, and surprisingly satisfying. According to a 2022 study she found in Nutrients, older adults who included quinoa in their meals saw an improvement in lower body strength in just 8 weeks. Ellen didn't expect miracles, but she started noticing little things. Fewer muscle cramps in the evening, her grip steadier when lifting the tea kettle, a little more balance when stepping out of the tub. One morning, she woke up early, pulled open the pantry, and reached for the pumpkin seeds she had nearly forgotten about. They had been sitting in the back corner for months, next to some trail mix she never opened. The label said 19 grams of protein per 100 grams. That alone was enough to catch her attention. She tossed a handful into her yogurt. The crunch was pleasant, and there was something satisfying about knowing she was feeding her body what it actually needed, not just what was convenient, not just what she'd always been told. Pumpkin seeds, she learned, were also rich in magnesium and zinc, 2 minerals essential for muscle contraction and recovery. One study she found mentioned how magnesium deficiency in older adults often leads to early fatigue, reduced muscle strength, and poor sleep. That explained more than she wanted to admit. She wrote in her notebook, "It's not just about protein. It's about giving the body the materials it needs to rebuild." And that's when things began to click. Tempeh came next. It was unfamiliar at first, firm, fermented, a little nutty in smell. She sliced it thin and pan-seared it with a touch of tamari and garlic powder. The edges crisped up beautifully. She tucked the slices into a warm grain bowl with steamed broccoli and a spoonful of tahini. Tempeh didn't just offer high protein. It was fermented, good for digestion, and naturally rich in leucine, just like quinoa. The study she read described how fermented foods improve gut health and, in turn, protein absorption. It wasn't just about what you eat. It was about what your body could use. Spirulina surprised her. The name sounded like something from a sci-fi movie, but the benefits were clear. High in protein, 29 grams per 100 grams, and full of anti-inflammatory compounds. Ellen didn't try to eat it by the spoonful. She added half a teaspoon to her morning smoothie: banana, frozen spinach, flaxseed, and almond milk. It turned the smoothie green, almost too green, but she smiled as she drank it, not because it tasted amazing, but because it felt like a quiet act of strength. Then came hemp seeds. Soft, mild, rich in protein, and full of omega-3s. She sprinkled them on top of cooked oats, mixed them into soup, even stirred them into mashed sweet potatoes. At this point, Ellen had stopped trying new things. These foods had become normal, part of her rhythm. They didn't take more effort, just more attention. Her breakfast became colorful. Her lunches varied, and dinners, once bland and repetitive, now felt like small celebrations of care. She found herself moving more easily. Her knees didn't groan as much when getting up. The hallway felt shorter. She caught herself humming again while doing dishes. One day, after walking up the stairs without using the rail, she paused halfway and blinked. A month ago, she would have needed both hands to pull herself up. Today, she did it in one breath. She hadn't joined a gym. She hadn't taken supplements or protein powders. She had simply changed what she put on her plate, and it was working. Her final discovery came in the form of a small, unassuming bag, dried fish powder. She learned that it contained over 60 grams of protein per 100 grams, more than chicken, beef, or any egg. She stirred a spoonful into her vegetable soup. It dissolved easily, leaving no fishy taste. Just warmth, depth, fuel. What amazed her most was that she didn't feel full or heavy after eating anymore. Just steady, supported. From that point on, she began tracking how she felt after each meal. Not out of obsession, but curiosity. She noticed that on days she had complete proteins with leucine, her energy held longer into the afternoon. Her thoughts felt clearer, her movements sharper. And it wasn't just physical. When her daughter called that weekend, Ellen spoke with more confidence. When Alex came over, she stood up from the couch without assistance. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she didn't see someone declining. She saw someone rebuilding. These weren't radical changes. They weren't overnight miracles, but they were real. Food, she realized, wasn't just about hunger or tradition. It was language, a way to tell your body, I'm still here, and I still care. Her list on the counter was now pinned to the fridge, creased on a line marked with stars. It was no longer just a grocery plan. It was a map. And with each bite, she wasn't just eating. She was coming back to herself. Ellen didn't tell anyone right away. She didn't need to. The changes were quiet but powerful. It wasn't about looking younger or moving like she used to. It was something deeper, a sense that she was finally working with her body instead of against it. One afternoon, as she folded laundry, she caught herself humming. That surprised her, not because she hadn't hummed in a while, but because she hadn't even realized she'd stopped. That little tune came from somewhere lighter, somewhere less tired. She wasn't climbing mountains or running marathons, but she could stand from the couch without holding both arms of the cushion. She could carry a full grocery bag from the car without pausing halfway up the driveway. These little things, the ones most people overlook, started to feel like milestones. And with each small success, something softened inside her. That quiet voice, the one that used to whisper, "You're slowing down, you're becoming a burden," was fading. In its place was a gentler truth. You're adapting. You're still capable. You matter. Her family noticed too. Alex started asking her for help with homework again, like he used to. Her daughter invited her to go shopping, not just to get her out, but because she wanted her company. Ellen hadn't become a different person. She had become more herself. The self that felt clear-headed and steady. The self that didn't second-guess her strength when reaching for the top shelf or walking through a crowd. And when she looked around her kitchen, the quinoa in jars, the hemp seeds by the tea bags, the fish powder tucked behind the broth cubes, she didn't see a list of dietary changes. She saw a woman who had taken her power back, one small meal at a time, and without announcing it, without planning it, she was beginning to live in a body she could trust again, one that moved with her, not against her, as if the strength had been there all along, waiting for her to remember it. Mornings felt different now. Ellen still woke early, but the heaviness in her limbs, the dragging sense that the day would be hard before it even began, was gone. Instead, there was rhythm. She'd warm water for tea, stir hemp seeds into her oatmeal, and breathe in the steam like it was part of her recovery. Her kitchen had become a quiet sanctuary, not a place of confusion or frustration. No longer did she stand at the fridge, unsure what to eat or worried that nothing would help. Her shelves were simple Greek yogurt, chickpeas, a tin of pumpkin seeds, but each item held purpose now. They weren't trendy. They were trustworthy. And more than that, they were hers. Choices she'd made with intention, grounded in care, not just for her body, but for the life she wanted to keep living. That life wasn't extravagant. It was independence, stability, being able to water her garden without losing balance, lifting a grocery bag without fearing a fall, saying yes when friends invited her out, not because she had to push through fatigue, but because she felt like going. She used to read articles about aging strong and feel disconnected, like those stories were for someone more athletic, more disciplined. But now she realized it wasn't about willpower. It was about listening differently, about giving her body what it had been quietly asking for all along. This journey hadn't been about restriction or giving things up. It had been about adding back in proteins her body could actually use, meals that felt nourishing without being overwhelming, ingredients that worked in the background while she went on living. There were still slow days, of course. Aging hadn't vanished, but it no longer defined her. Weakness wasn't a given, it was just a signal. And now, she knew how to respond to that signal without panic. The fear that once clouded her mornings, of becoming invisible, fragile, or less than, had softened. In its place was a calm confidence. She didn't need to prove anything. She just needed to keep choosing what helped her feel steady. And with every small, thoughtful meal, she was doing exactly that, reclaiming not only her health, but her presence in the world around her. Ellen never set out to reinvent anything. She didn't follow a plan, didn't count grams or calories. She simply listened to her body, to her grandson's innocent question, to the quiet message hidden in her daily fatigue. And piece by piece, she rebuilt her meals, and with them, her confidence. There was no single food that fixed everything. It was a gentle layering. Greek yogurt here, quinoa there, a sprinkle of seeds, a spoonful of fish powder that slowly filled in the gaps. Foods that had always been around her, now seen through new eyes. She often thought about how close she'd come to giving in, to accepting weakness as her new normal. But now she knew weakness wasn't her identity. It was just an early message from a body asking for more support. Today, her kitchen looks the same. No fancy packaging. No expensive trends. Just a quiet rhythm of care. Meals made with intention, not fear. And each time she stirs something nourishing into her bowl, she remembers what she almost forgot. She is not fading. There are so many Ellens out there, women and men who still believe they're doing the right thing, but don't understand why they feel smaller, slower, less themselves. Maybe this story reaches them in time. If you made it this far, thank you. If this story felt familiar, if it gave you even one small sense of comfort, leave a comment below with the word steady. We read every word, and it helps us know we're not alone in this. Stay kind. Stay fresh. See you again soon.